pass you by. It's just this way at the Dim Carnival.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Dim Carnival. I'm Bill.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Ryan.
And we are wrapping up this week talking about the Great Milenko, which means that we're going to be done with the fifth Joker's card this week. Nope, the fourth one. Just kidding.
Joker's card. It took us a month and a half to get through it. Jesus.
That's because it's great. And everybody loves it. And there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to discuss and dissect and digest. And on that note, we are talking about the final three songs off of the Great Milenko. And first up, if you haven't listened to it yet, we encourage you to listen to Down with the Clown right now. So guys, this song has the first mention of being down with the clown, and then it has a song about Down with the Clown. It just has the song. So, Down with the Clown, like an anthem about being a fan of this band.
So you go ahead, Steve. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say what was funny to me. I was just thinking about this. Was the day before I bought this album, had you come up to me and said, "Hey, are you going to be down with the clown until you're dead in the ground?" And I would have said, "That's the stupidest thing I'd ever heard." And then the next day I buy this tape and like you guys said, like there's a lot of songs on it. And just first time through, by the time I got to this song and they're like, I'm like, yes, I am going to be down with the clown until I'm dead in the ground. Like it's like, you know, it was building me up all the way, just like loving it. And then all of a sudden, like this song just boom, it broke me. This is just fucking brilliant.
Yeah, like the last three tracks on this album are very tied together because this song is about, so in What is a Juggalo, they have, the people who created the concept of juggaloism have a lot of difficulty defining what it is, but they say, I don't know what a juggalo is, but I am down with the clown and I'm down for life. And this song sort of defines that. It's not really an instruction manual, it's just a celebration.
Yeah.
I think it just, they really figured out a great way. I mean, I don't know if they engineered it this way or if it just magically happened that it all came together. So they really found a way to tie the identity with the band to the core idea of the band, which is that this basically like Armageddon is coming, that the Judgment Day, that the end of the world, right? Like that the carnival will eventually, I assume, consume the earth. Like it's making its way across town. Is that kind of what you guys thought, or do you think it's just an ongoing thing that just rolls around from place to place?
Well, though there is a sense of there would be like an Armageddon at some point. Yeah.
Well, because then they're building to. I feel like they're starting to lay the I feel like they're starting to lay the groundwork towards to the idea of Shangri-La and the everlasting life and all that, right? So the idea that in order to be saved, then you need to stay with the carnival, like you need to stick around, so that you can make sure you're like in the right place at the right time or whatever, that you know enough to pass the test or whatever when it comes.
See, I disagree with that a little bit, because not everyone who goes to heaven, even in their own heaven that we'll see later on, like their version of heaven, not everyone there's a juggalo. So just being a good person, not you know. And I think in the Jekyll Brothers, they'll explain it more like when they're juggling your deeds, and then which ones get juggled. If you have more bad deeds, then the good deeds are dropped, and then you go to hell because you had too many bad deeds, kind of a thing. So I take it more as that, you know, Armageddon's coming, or something is going to happen, or we're just going to die. And they're just, you know, they're juggalos. They're going to be down with the clown. But there's going to be other types. It's like a path. It's not the path.
Well, yeah, that sounds rad. I think it's just, it's unique. I think it's cool that they managed to work out a way to have the fandom tied to the mythos or whatever.
Mythos, yeah, absolutely. It's brilliant. It is absolutely brilliant.
Well, I think it's really interesting that they like fully 100% predicted like their own arc. Like, this is a very metatextual song. To me, this song isn't about the Dark Carnival so much as it's about Insane Clown Posse, the band. And I think it's really interesting that like this song appeared on the Hollywood Records version, and this song appeared like they wrote this song, they produced this song, and intended to put this song on an album before they ever had like a gold album, before they were really known outside of Detroit and that area. Like they sort of wrote this song as like, we're on a major label, and like we're on more than a major label, we're on Disney now, and like people are probably gonna like start, you know, accusing us of going soft. And people, I mean, maybe it had already happened when they announced that they signed with it. Like maybe people were already, you know, giving them shit in their little circle, like, oh, you guys gonna stop like rapping about killing people now? Like they sort of like completely called every shot in this song, because it's them saying, you know, even though, you know, our albums are going to get bigger and bigger and more people are going to know about us, it's not going to change what we're doing. And I think it's interesting that the chorus of the song is like, what about when the world's like, fuck us, kill us? Like, they always prided themselves on being controversial and being outlandish, and they were intentionally trying to shock people. And, you know, part of being in Insane Clown Posse, part of being in any band, is sort of like believing your own hype and wanting to think like, yeah, man, we're going to shock the entire world. We're going to make the whole world hate us. But they probably didn't realize the extent. I mean, maybe they did realize, but at the time, they probably didn't have any sort of firsthand idea or knowledge about the scope that they would shortly attain after they recorded this song. Of like, for a while, the world was like, fuck them, kill them. Like, they became exactly. I just think it's interesting that this song predicted exactly what would happen with Insane Clown Posse, and I think that's what makes it such an effective anthem, and what makes it hold up so well is when they wrote the song, it was sort of like an idea of where they would be going, and an idea of like buying into their own hype and trying to hype themselves up and make themselves seem like they're cool, and make the people listening to them feel like they're cool outcasts. But it ended up being like pretty accurate, I feel.
Yeah, that's a good take.
Thanks. I just like the idea of Violent Ed.
Yeah, there's some great lyrics in this song.
Because they will end up doing a lot more songs like this, especially like on the Bizarre albums and on, you know, Shangri-La, of like, you know, what if I became an R&B soft guy? Like, would you still be down? Like, they play with stuff a lot, but it started becoming, because, you know, there were times where they did like change up their sound a little bit and did like experiment a little bit, and there was sort of a test of like, how much are you going to put up with, you know, like how much are you willing to just let us be us and trust that we know what we're doing, or like, are you whack?
Well, and I think so I like that you suggest that they know about how much they're doing or how much they should do. And I was thinking that's kind of what I think that the song was. And they were sort of lucky that they ended up getting all of that controversy, because I was thinking about, we talked on the last episode or 2 episodes ago about how they went down to Dallas to replicate their success. that they were having in Detroit to show the record label.
Mhm.
And they know how to, and they clearly know how to do that demonstrated by the success that they had in Dallas. They do that with street teams and flyering and advertising and all that. I feel like they know how to get people excited about their band. And so I believe that they were probably trying to write a song to like coach people who are listening to be like how to be fans or whatever, of like, we know what we need to do. We need to get them with a hook and have them pronounce that they're down with us or whatever.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
and it's also like when the carnival comes to your town, it's like when ICP's in town playing a show, are you going to come or not? You know, are you going to be there or not?
And now we know that the answer is yes.
But I do also think that they did expect some kind of controversy with their lyrics, just because that's what they're trying to do, is be controversial. I mean,
Sure.
that's what they're hoping for. But I also feel like that when they're saying like that them saying like, what about when the world's like fuck us, kill us? I think that that's as much the way that they tend to be self-deprecating, that they don't necessarily think that they're owed like success, or that people end up hating them because they're scrubs and they're just hate-worthy people.
Yeah.
And but
Like-
that you still got to be down with them. If you're a true juggalo, that's your homie, you know, like you're like, cool,
Yeah.
you're a piece of shit.
It's a very clever song because it speaks not just to Insane Clown Posse as a band, but also to the way their fans feel. And as we've talked about a couple times, including in the past couple weeks, they're very, very keyed into the mindset of their average fan, of like being a social outcast, having trouble dealing with emotions and knowing what it's like, and sort of like knowing that their band encompasses that feeling.
Well, I think this is one of my favorite songs on the album. Just the way that it starts gets me really fired up right away with the scratching sound and Shaggy just like screaming right out of the gates. And talking about, and I had heard of dog beats when this album came out, but I had never heard of basement cuts. So I didn't even know what that was. And, you know, so he's like, this was for the Ninjas has been down since Carnival Carnage. I'm like, yes, okay, I didn't start there, but I've heard
He's like,
it.
fuck you. And you're like, oh.
Yeah, and then once it's been down since dog beats, I'm like, how are you supposed to find dog beats? I would love to hear dog beats, Shaggy. You can't berate me for this.
LimeWire hasn't even been invented yet.
Right.
Settle down.
We barely had the internet. We didn't have the internet. I don't know what I had. It was
And that's
AOL.
what's interesting is, like, again, they had been on a major album. Like, they had been on a major label. They had been fucked over by a major label. And they were well aware, like, we're probably not going to become known worldwide unless we make it happen for ourselves. And so the intro sort of speaks to, like, we don't know how many people this is going to reach. So this one is for the people who are actually listening to this album. Like, but at the same time, we have an idea that we're going to be hated by the entire world.
Well, I think they kind of found a way to make it seem cool and inclusive, or exclusive. Their club for people that's inclusive or whatever, you know? It's like this like welcoming society for freaks and weirdos. But if you haven't already been, if you got there earlier, then you're cooler. Like if you joined it sooner. But it doesn't work against it. Like when I hear that, I think like, oh yeah, I want to be down with the clown. Like I want to be cool with these guys. They're great.
What's your favorite Jodeci song?
Feenin'? Sorry.
The deep cuts.
Feenin's not a deep cut.
I like the disparity of Menudo and Rob Bass.
Right, Menudo was like long forgotten, but recent. Like the only reason that he knows about it is because of Ricky Martin, right?
Probably.
Like I don't know I imagine that's how I.
Well, there was a show in the 80s that they had that came on Saturday mornings during cartoons.
Yeah.
I guess he would have probably seen that.
So you probably saw that.
Menudo.
Yeah, I didn't know who Jodeci is, or still don't to this day.
It's Casey and JoJo.
Well, it's and whoever Duh is. I don't know.
Probably DeVoe, if I have to guess.
No.
It's a super group of Casey and JoJo and Belle Biv DeVoe.
Right. It's Belt Live DeVoe's three guys.
Donald Devontae Swing DeGreat and Mr. Dalvin DeGreat.
So
wow,
it
your
is
last
super
name could be DeGreat? That's crazy. Like, it's not spelled the great, but it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, so if anybody wants to go listen to Fiendin' by Jodeci, that's a great song. There's so many great images that Violent J creates in this song.
Mhm.
And I like when he says, I really like the way he says, or... when he says what if it puts his ugly ass face on the album cover, like, so there's that self-deprecation again.
Yeah.
But it made me, that specific moment, or that line, it made me remember a track off of Twisted's re-release of their first album, Bury Me Alive, where he talks about Violent J does a skit about getting them on like MTV Rock and Jog Halftime B-Ball Volleyball Challenge. Yeah. I got right after Coolio, right before Coolio, and right after Mace.
Yeah.
But yeah, just like they're, the idea of them that trying to be flashy, celebrity, whatever, like they're just acknowledging that that'll never be them.
Yeah.
If I can take it into a little bit of a different direction to kind of answer a question you had back when we were talking about Piggy Pie, Ryan, you had asked, because like we were confused, like, come and get your piggy snacks, and you're just saying, so the piggy snacks are made from the racists they're killing, and you're saying, do they eat people? Like, and at the time, none of us really even thought about it, I guess. But yeah, they eat people a lot in songs later on, and this is one where they do.
Right.
And it's so great the way he says it, where he's like, I ate a dead body, I ain't proud of it. I told you all about it, and you all applauded.
Hey!
Hey! Like, it's so awesome. I love that so much. And I love that he calls himself a ghetto puppet.
He's got problems. He's haunted by a carnival.
Yeah.
And we just love it. Like, he's a tortured person. He's like, he's not a very funny clown, He's like, he's having a hard time out there. Deal with it. But we love it. So he's like, all right, man, at least I can get paid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a pretty interesting, like, he's like, man, I'm tortured, I'm fucked up. So, I mean, like, I put it on wax and people bought it, so I'm like, fuck. It's funny that is like an admission in this song of like, well, shit. I mean, you guys seem to like it, so fuck, I'm gonna keep doing it. I also love the callback to Violent Ed.
Yeah.
Yes.
And guys, how fucking popular would a two-headed rapper that headbutted the other head every time he cussed, like, how popular would that guy be? So popular.
If Violent J grew a second head named Ed and they rapped together, they would be the biggest band of all time.
I mean, in a lot of ways, that's just what ICP is.
The two-headed single-bodied monster is I feel like underrated.
Yeah, it's great. I love the two-headed monster on Sesame Street. It's my favorite ogre in World of Warcraft.
Oh, good call.
I always fancied the story of the guy who's carrying a box on his shoulder, and the kids just gotta see what's inside the box.
The Tales from the Crypt thing.
Yeah.
So good. Anywho, we are done with the clown, and we're done with this song. I think it's safe to say.
I also like that he was when he so I said, I think it was last episode, I said that I would talk about how it's interesting to me that they continuously seem to write songs for young people. Mm-hmm. And sometimes and even if you look at the tracks that we covered this week and last week, like, there's some, the Hallelujah song, that's like obviously a pretty mature content, like more mature theme. Boogie Woogie Woo, maybe that's like a callback, or just something that, even as adults, you like horror stuff from kids or whatever. If they made a horror movie about the Boogie Monster, that's for adults, right? But in Down with the Clown, he says, like, I could make your mom happy keeping it soft. I'd rather grab my dick and tell your mom to fuck off. His audience, he understands, is like still in a situation where their parents are going to be like monitoring what music they're listening to. And so it's interesting to me that seems to me to be a demographic or whatever that they're attempting to appeal to.
Yeah,
There's a
people who still live with
purring.
their parents. Yeah, it's a cat purr. All right, settle down.
But they're like, at this point, it's 1997, so they're what, like 25, 20, they're like in their late 20s?
Yeah, and so are all their fans, and both Insane Clown Posse and their fans live with their parents.
Well, I guess they did in House of Horrors. He's an adult drinking beer and living with his parents. So, you're right. You're probably right.
Yeah. He's playing Atari. His father is Violent J, just as Beavis's father is Butthead.
So the last thing that I want to say about this song is that to me it feels like it goes in phases. Like it actually takes you to like different places. So during the verse, it's this kind of like whimsical, funny, whatever, like the cool. I like the bass lines, like doom 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 doom, like this like fun bass line. But then the chorus is like wailing and it feels like a lot more scary to me.
Yeah.
But then it goes back and forth between those two things, but then it evolves into like more of like a march, and it does have like a long fade out with a scratching part, things that we've talked about they've done on other tracks.
Mm-hmm.
But that to me feels more, and then there's this like, circusy, organ that comes in.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it's kind of like the song itself is sort of like a journey of like, you're going to come and we're going to get you with the funny stuff and it's going to be lighthearted. And then we're going to show you some of the more serious stuff. And you'll be like, oh shit. Yeah, I'm down with that too. That's dark. And then you're going to like join the march of the carnival and become part of the carnival as well.
Yeah. And it's also like the refrain of like, I'm going to enjoy and be loyal to this until I'm dead. Absolutely just perfectly sets up the final two songs on this album.
Yeah.
So if you haven't listened to Just Like That, go ahead and take a listen right now. Pass Me By, apart from the intro and the instrumental, are the shortest songs on it's the shortest song on the album, and it is basically the song is just a prologue to Pass Me By. So I mean, you can go ahead and listen to Pass Me By now too. But it's certainly a song that I know Steve has loved in the past, and I have loved, and I still love now. It's just a fun little, Jay just busting out some quick raps about someone's final morning on Earth before being murdered. And is this and this is definitely Violent J in this song, but perhaps Violent J before he became a servant of the Dark Carnival?
I wonder. I don't know.
No, because he goes to heaven.
Yeah.
Right.
All right.
I think it's
So,
it's like a it's like a
So you
fantasy.
can be killed. So if you're a wicked clown that's a servant of the Dark Carnival, you could be murdered and go to heaven.
Yes.
Interesting. Good to know. But he says wicked clowns never die. Guys,
I feel like
there's some
this is.
inconsistency.
I feel like it's not Violent J. I feel like it's
Joe Bruce.
Joe Bruce.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah. It's not. Yeah. It's just him.
I like that and get behind that.
There are things he says, like just little things that like stand out to me, like just right off the bat where he says jump out of bed and I head for the grape nuts. I used to love eating grape nuts, like, and it's such a weird cereal to eat because it hurts, but like
Yes, it's very
and
painful
then it's
cereal.
funny because he wants to eat them quick while they're still hard instead of getting soggy. I used to like them to get soggy, but
Well, when they're soggy, it's just sludge. It's not
That's
actual. It's
awesome.
not cereal anymore.
oh, it tastes so good. Becomes like a paste.
I've never had grape nuts, and I thought that was their thing, is that they stayed hard.
Yeah,
They'll soften up.
I think you're thinking of you, Ryan.
constantly.
And then the other thing, what I loved is like the other thing where he says, "Oh shit, throw my pro wings on my feet." I mean, I got made fun of so much for wearing pro wings growing up, but that was, what we could afford. And I love that he's just straight up like, I felt like I belong, like he's like using imagery I know, products I know, and I loved it. I mean, I still love it.
It's the second shout out to footwear in an ICP song. The first time was kangaroos.
Nice.
So
There was some
they're
other
hard representing the Payless Shoe Source brands.
Yeah. There was some funny stuff that never really stood out to me. Like, well, or that Bill, you corrected me on. Like, when I first listened to it, I thought he was saying, "Oh shit, let me call Ill Bill." And you're like, "No, it's Bill Bill." And I'm like, I remember thinking to myself, why would it be Bill Bill? But then, like, you showed it to me, and I'm like, it is Bill Bill, which then became funny to me. But I just remember always thinking it was Ill Bill for the longest time. And then when he's talking about the Faygo being flat, like, that went over my head every single time. And I remember you pointing that out to me too, saying that it's flatter than a bitch on a big wheel. Like, that never even, like...
You thought he was saying fatter.
I thought,
for a long
time I thought it was fatter too. And then, when I learned it was flatter, I was like, okay. I don't know why a woman on a big wheel, is that like one of those trikes, those plastic trikes that you ride as a kid?
Yeah, it's a child.
Yeah, it's a child. It's just a little girl.
Okay. Wow.
And see, I didn't. Yeah, Bill pointed that out too. And yeah, just it's weird how stuff like that just goes right over my head half the time.
Yeah.
But then I want to go and let my nuts do the windmill.
Okay, so we haven't even said what this song is about. So
Sorry.
I did.
No,
yeah, he did.
Well, you said it was the last day on Earth, but like, what's he trying to do? Like, what's he trying to accomplish? He wakes up.
Get laid.
Oh yeah.
He gets a phone call from Shaggy, and Shaggy's like, "Hey, oh no!" First he wakes up and he's like, "Oh, I got like $1.50, so I'm gonna go get a Faygo. That's what I'm gonna do today." And then he gets a phone call from Shaggy, and Shaggy's like, "Hey, I know a couple girls, and actually, I remember a long, long time ago, on this show we talked about that you said that on the last track they're gonna go fuck the same girl, but I think it's two chicks."
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh.
And he's like, so Shaggy's like, if we can get a ride down there, we can have sex with both.
Oh,
Yeah.
we can hit them both on the spot.
Yeah.
She's got another friend with her, and her dad's rich.
Right, so we can both get laid if we can get down there. And I think it's funny that like they don't have cars and
Yeah, because he can get the Skylark.
Right, so they say they're gonna call Mike Clark,
Yeah.
whatever, and then they finally they figure out Bill can give them a ride, but they need gas money. So they have to choose between a Faygo and getting laid. But then Shaggy's like, "No, I got $10 from Lakes, so we can do both, my man. We got gas money. We're gonna stop and get Faygo, and we're gonna go get laid."
We can do both. We got gas money and sex money.
Right. It's important. Sounds like a good fun.
Gonna put a
fun
cheerleader
Saturday.
in his butt cheeks. For those of you who do not know or may not know, Bill is a longtime friend of, or Billy Bill is a longtime friend of Joe and Joey, going back to their childhood, and for a long time, beginning around this era when they needed one, became their bodyguard and head of security, and he sort of kept escalating in the hierarchy of Psychopathic Records and the Insane Clown Posse. And when Alex Abyss left Psychopathic Records and stopped representing Insane Clown Posse, Bill is now the CEO of Psychopathic Records.
Wow.
Yeah. So hold on to your
I still
dreams.
think it should be called Ill Bill.
Yeah, you should tell him.
When I went to go see ICP for the first time, I was waiting in line outside the venue before it opened, and the tour bus was there in the parking lot. We could see it like on the other end, and these guys came out of the bus and rode up on Razor scooters, and I recognized them from like some promotional videos or something, that it was Billy Bill and Tom Dubb. And they just rolled up and were like talking to, there's like, hey, what's up? To the people. There was like maybe 8 or 10 of us there, at the time. But he's a big dude. He kind of reminds me of, White Boy Bob from, Out of Sight.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say White. Oh, sorry, I was thinking of White Power Bill from Arrested Development.
No, White Boy Bob.
Oh, Bob, yeah.
But
he
he's
definitely
like,
does look like that.
so he's like ready. He's got his fresh kicks on, jumps outside, and he's waiting for the car to roll by, and a car drives, but it's somebody else drives by and then comes back a second time and stops and shoots him and kills him.
He's out of luck. And then we get to Pass Me By. I think that this is, this definitely sets the bar at this era for sure for ballads that close out a Joker's Card or an ICP album. And it's really, really hard in my estimation to find a song that gets more celebratory than this song gets. I love this song to death. I think that this song is pretty close to perfect. It makes me feel good just to think about this song. So I want to get your guys' thoughts on Pass Me By.
Does this excite you? Think about it. Does it not stagger the imagination?
And it's interesting to go back to this intro, given what we just listened to last week with Hallelujah.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
The same sort of preacher voice, possibly even the same preacher, where we sort of get both sides of the coin here, where he thinks that preachers who exploit people and like do carny tricks and are just out for your money are going to be murdered by the Dark Carnival and they're going to hell. But there is a converse of that. There's a flip side. There is a heaven. There's a Shangri-La, and there is a good place to go to if you're a decent person. And it's not the classical version of heaven that we may be used to, but it's just like a place where cool, chill people can go hang out.
That was the first note that I wrote, is because the first line, I believe it's Shaggy. He says, "I'm dead and I made it to the carnival. Can't believe I made it to the carnival."
Yeah.
And so that seems kind of weird to me because we do understand that when you die, you go to the carnival. But he's saying it like he's surprised that he made it there, like it was an inevitability, that he's describing it more like he's surprised that he made it to the good version of the afterlife, like the good place.
Well, he also says he can't believe that it's possible. Like maybe he wasn't convinced, but he was still doing the best he can. Like maybe he didn't even really believe that the carnival was a real place, but look at shit, here it is.
But I feel like he's describing it more like what we would actually now call Shangri-La, that it is more like the idyllic afterlife, not the judgmental live or die.
And this is maybe something that they never like really dip into again, but if there's a dark carnival, maybe Shangri-La is the carnival. Like maybe the carnival is not the same as the dark carnival.
I wonder if it's like if it is a sort of utopian thing that like eventually we'll get to the place where when everybody's in the like limbo of the carnival and judgment, and that could be why there's rednecks there, that it's like it's a party and everybody's having a good time because there's nothing to worry about. Like nobody's going to get sent to hell anymore. Even if you're a redneck, you're cool. Everybody's cool.
So this is after the second coming, you're saying?
Well, that's what it feels like to me. I mean, as we start to get later on into the song, I feel like that's what this whole thing is like. This judgment day is coming. This Armageddon or apocalypse. This big thing is coming that we need to be ready for or whatever.
Yeah, I think that tracks pretty well. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think where this apocalyptic idea comes from this song. I guess I hadn't thought about it as deep, like the carnival being different than the dark carnival, or anything like that. I guess, I just saw it as heaven, and yeah, I felt like instead of it being like saying the carnival and stuff like that, like it being a part of like some kind of lore. It's just like kind of just words that they use, if that makes sense. You know, like to them it's
for
just,
sure.
yeah.
That's the most likely explanation.
But yeah, I mean, for me, yeah, it's just these folks are dead and they're in heaven, and like I said earlier, that it's you know, there's so many different people there, and it's and the Dark Carnival is like a path, it's not the path, and so that's why you get rednecks, you know, which I kind of liked because, you know, they talk so much shit about killing racist rednecks and stuff, and but then there are rednecks in heaven, and so saying the assumption that like not all rednecks are racist bastards that need to be killed and go to hell, you know.
Yeah.
Hey, Elvis made it to heaven.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't fare too well in heaven, but he made it there. Hey, Steve, how do you feel about the first line of this song?
Oh, I am so glad you asked. Man, when I bought this, I just really wanted to hear that line. And that was kind of why I bought the album to begin with, the first line of this song. Because, as I've probably already said 2 or 3 times now throughout this journey, about how that song, that first line was a sound on my computer that it would make when I didn't, it had an error. But except saying anus, it went ding, and I always thought that was the greatest thing. And I just remember listening to this whole album, waiting for that line to happen, and of course it's the first line of the last song of the longest album I've ever listened to in my life. And but no, it was so rewarding when it came on. I just remember like throwing up my hands and like, there it is.
Were you disappointed that there wasn't a ding in the actual song?
Well, of course I knew there wasn't going to be a ding. No, you didn't really mean that question.
I did.
Oh. No, that's why you know my humor. I like the stupidest things. Like before there were memes, there was Mad Magazine making Photoshop pictures. And I thought those were the funniest things. And this is kind of like that. The way whoever edited that little thing to make that sound file, you know, they had my sense of humor in mind when they made that.
Can I ask you guys, what flavor of Faygo do you think Violent J uses to wash his butt?
Strawberry.
Yeah, I was thinking like a fruit flever.
Yeah, I was thinking orange.
I mean, I could see him do orange.
I have a question for Ryan. Well, first I want to point out that Violent J gets shot, but it's Shaggy 2 Dope who wakes up and
Right.
Hence why I was so confused listening to this album, not
What's
knowing who was
going
who.
on?
We've explored that before about them potentially being the same person.
Yeah. They share the same dick.
Right. They're the same superhero.
What I would...
Sorry.
Woo woo.
Oh yeah, so I wanted to make sure to point out that this is the second woo woo, and this is after Stomp. This, in the chorus of this song, the woo woo is much more in line with what we would come to understand as the salutation of woo woo, and it makes more sense in here because it's like, hey, we're in heaven, woo woo. Like, I think it's really solidified.
We forgot to mention that, but they did also do the whoop whoop just like that in Down with the Clown.
Oh, right. Got it. But still.
But no, this is like the first time that they're doing it on this record, really. Well, so to answer your question, Steve, is I realize I read a lot into these the lyrics and stuff when I'm thinking about these songs. But I was listening to you, and you asked, you know, where the suggestion of Armageddon or whatever comes, and I think it has more to do with me looking back at this song after having listened to Jekyll Brothers and Nothing's Left, which really I'm really excited to talk about Nothing's Left when we get to it. but they say in the chorus, they say that we're all gonna die. And I think at the time, when this album came out, I thought it was the inevitability that every person will die at some point. But looking back at it now, I feel like because of Shaded with Thoughts that I developed later listening to ICP, I feel like it might be more of that suggestion that's implied, I guess.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Instead of we're all gonna die, meaning we're all gonna die, it means more we're all gonna die.
Right. Juggalos die together. It's the lyric.
It's your standard Heaven's Gate murder suicide situation.
We all die together. Juggalos die together. I mean,
Yeah.
I was a little bit skeeved out by that, but we'll talk about it when we get there.
My question for you, though, Ryan, is when he wakes up in a parking lot, Flash wakes up in a parking lot, what is he sitting in?
Okay, I really honestly have no idea. I looked up the lyrics. I'm trying to look it up, whatever they describe it as.
What I always heard was, I'm sitting in a 64 Rhine Keys, and I thought that it was some sort of foreign car or model called a Rhine Keys, like sort of like a Marquise sort of thing, like that it's some classic car I don't know about, but that people will know about. That's what I always thought he was saying, sitting in a 64 Rhine Keys, and I don't know why that I always thought that, but I also looked up the lyrics, and he's supposedly saying something that sounds like is not what he's actually saying.
I thought it was Ryden Keys, 64 Ryden Keys, and I don't know why I thought that. I just assumed that it meant like rolling on dubs or whatever, sitting on fancy kind of wheels that I didn't know were keys.
Okay, so I think we're actually going to crack the case right here, Ryan.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
Because you said 64 Ryden Keys?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Genius Lyrics says, I'm sitting in a 64 on D's, and the annotation is Dayton Wire Wheels are a brand of high-quality wire wheels for motor vehicles, and they show a 64 Chevy Impala on D's.
Right.
And so I think he's saying, I'm sitting in a 64 Ryden D's.
Ryden D's. I think you're right. That sounds right.
And it's all because of what you had heard. So thank you. Thank you for that.
All right. Well, I'm glad I could provide that service to America. Well, we should close up shop. Success.
Any further thoughts about this song other than it's super awesome? I think maybe you guys might have thoughts about the supergroup that they watch play in the afterlife.
Well, there's a couple things I wanted to say. The first is this is the song that they ended the first concert that I ever saw ICP. And right before, when the music starts and it's the preacher guy, like, can you imagine, whatever, they start saying, he's like, everybody that's on the stage, get in the audience. Everybody that's on the audience, get on the stage. And I had, like I said, I was early. I got there first, and I went straight ahead to the front of the stage. I skipped right past the merch and everything because I wanted to be right up front. And there was a metal barricade that was up there to keep us from the direct front of the stage. But during the show, there was so much force that I got pushed to the side, and security let me stand in front of the barricade, just kind of on the very end where it ended. So I was right up at the front of the stage, directly in their face. Like, they would come and rap at me and hold the microphone in my face, and they had backup clowns in these scary clown masks, and they would come and dance in front of me or whatever. I was right up in the front. They're spraying Faygo full blast right into my eyes the whole time. I could barely see. Like, it was like moments and flashes that I could actually even see. During the entire show, it was incredible. So when he said, get on stage, I was the first one on stage. I was the only one that was right there. So I jumped up and I immediately ran to the big bucket of Faygo 2 liters. And I stuffed 2 in my pants, 1 down each leg. And then I went up but at this point, the first chorus was going. And Violent J was standing up there in the middle of the stage, and I came up and I put my arm around him and put my hand on the microphone. And he held the microphone over, which I do not think the microphone was turned on at this point. But it was such a fucking rad moment that, like, I couldn't believe that this really happened, that I went to this, because I almost didn't go because my friend bailed on me. And it was just so, I was there. Like, I don't know where Shaggy was. He was already gone, I think, because people were starting to jump up on the stage. And I just felt like it was so magical that I was going to get to have this experience. It was better than I could have ever imagined, you know?
That's awesome.
I love it.
Yeah, and it was a great song to end on at the time. I mean, it is. I feel like it's a really positive, you know, uplifting song.
Yeah. It's a very good set ender. Like I say, it's one of my all-time favorite ICP songs, and it just makes me feel good to think about.
I feel like the false ending is also really good. I feel like it's a little bit cute, but I'm pretty pleased with whoever idea it was to do the false ending, and then have it come back in again. Seems like them just really trying to make the most of it, and that's what I kind of thought was funny, because I don't remember how much, if you remember the details, Bill, I hope you can share them, that they were limited by Hollywood Records with a time limit, that the record wasn't supposed to be more than 60 minutes, I think, and they turned it in and it was 10 minutes over or something like that. And Hollywood's like, no, you can't, you have to cut it down. We said 60 minutes, and they really fought for it. They're like, no, this extra stuff needs to be in there. And I thought, well, there's 2 minutes that you can cut off right away just with the false, the false ending. And there's a number of skits, I just imagine them thinking like that, that redneck making a phone order.
Oh shit, we didn't even talk about that.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. We didn't talk about
that skit's got to be in there. I know that Hollywood and Disney are going to be super pissed at us for coming in over time, but we want to have that skit in there.
Oh goddamn!
I love that skit.
That's a great one.
Like that, because it's like the spiritual successor to the but it's such a good way of like mocking the people that they hate just by using sounds. Like there's no words in that skit.
Man, we did that for years. I still do that. Like, just
Swan.
I haven't even smoked pot yet, and I'm giggling.
Oh yeah, this is nature's pot.
Yeah.
Wait. All right, guys, let's get some final thoughts on Pass Me By. We know we love it. Let's talk about it. Anything else to say, or?
Yeah, man, just a real great. Shit, that sounds stupid. Just a fucking awesome, bring it home, bring it all together, really tied it all up in a nice bow. Leaves you with a great feeling, leaves you wanting more. I think I mentioned that on another episode, that they kind of, when the carnival leaves, there's this bittersweet moment that they sort of bake in, there's still something. They promise you that there's something more to come. It's pretty rad.
And I liked, as it being the very first album I ever heard, that I got the depth and breadth of what the Dark Carnival is, what a Juggalo is, where they're going. There's an end, it leads to heaven, all that. I thought it was so well put together. And it's funny because it starts off so creepy. I mean, if you remember, when we started this this album, and I was talking about hearing it for the first time, and I was literally kind of creeped out by it. I wouldn't have been as creeped out if I had known at the time it was Alice Cooper, but it's good I didn't know that, because it made it even creepier to me. And so for it to start off and be kind of what am I getting myself into? And then it ended, and I'm like, I'm going to heaven.
Yeah, well said.
I just thought that was awesome. It's just so great.
Very good point.
Yeah.
Next week, we're going to dive into Forgotten Freshness Volumes 1 and 2. There was a Forgotten Freshness that came out in 1995, but after Great Milenko came out, it was a success. They put out Forgotten Freshness Volumes 1 and 2 in 1998, before Jekyll Brothers, the next album, came out in 1999. So let's dive into the first volume of that next week. We're going to listen to the first 5 songs. And keep in mind, this is Forgotten Freshness Volumes 1 and 2, the 2-disc thing that was released, because if you just listen to Forgotten Freshness, extremely different track listing, not the same thing we're talking about. So we're going to listen to, let's say, the first 5 songs off of the first disc of that. So we're talking about Hey Vato, Dead Pumpkins, Fat Sweaty Betty, Willie Bubba, and Graveyard.
Nah, these are good songs, man. There's some good ones in there.
Should we do fewer than 5 or
No, that sounds good. Sounds good.
So we're talking
we can always break it up if we have to.
Yeah. We'll talk about the first 5 next week, and maybe we'll start next week with just some overall reminiscences of Great Milenko as an album, because we haven't really done that, and we don't really have time to get into that this week. So
I like that
first
idea.
5 tracks off of that. So talking once again, Forgotten Freshness Volumes 1 and 2, we're going to talk about Hey Vato, Dead Pumpkins, Fat Sweaty Betty, Willie Bubba, and Graveyard featuring Project Born. So thanks to everybody for listening. Thank you for sticking with us through the Great Milenko saga. It was a lot of fun for us, as you can probably tell. You can email us, dimcarnival@gmail.com, if you've got any questions or thoughts or concerns, or things that we've missed, or maybe you want to tell us that a 64 Ryan Keys is a car that exists. And you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Dim Carnival. And until next week, everybody, I'm Bill.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Ryan.
And until next week, we're going to be down with the clown. Just until next week, though. Like, they're on thin ice, but we're loose with them.